Hello, I'm Patty Baskin. I'm the executive editor of Neurology, and I'm with Dr. Ted Burns, who is the podcast editor for Neurology. Dr. Burns has been with the podcast since 2007. He is their chief script writer, editor, and champion. Dr. Burns, what inspired you to begin the podcast in 2007?
Well, at the time, I'm the residency director at UVA, and I was back then, and I was realizing that we do a really nice job of training our residents and making sure that they're as up to date on the literature as we can make them. But I was a little concerned that after they graduate from residency, that we don't focus our efforts on helping physicians, neurologists stay up to date. So I was thinking along those lines, and then I read about podcasting and thought this would be a great thing for neurology and the academy to do.
What are the advantages of podcasting over traditional methods of education?
Well, I think there are a number. One that I really liked was the fact that you can listen to a podcast during what is somewhat otherwise downtime, like during your commute or during a workout. I like the fact that it's on demand, that it's free, that the reach can be global. Anyone who has internet connection can get the podcast. So those are four things that immediately struck me as an advantage of podcasting over some of the other media we use to help physicians stay up to date.
Can you tell us how a podcast is organized?
So right now they're each about 20-25 minutes long, and we start with an introduction by Bob Gross, the editor-in-chief of Neurology. And then we have what we call a featured article interview, which is about a 7-minute interview with the corresponding author of a paper from that week's journal. And then we have a clinical pearl section, and then what we call a lesson of the week, where we cover an interesting topic in neurology. And then we end with Dr. Gross saying concluding remarks and talking a little bit about that issue of neurology.
What features do you see that might be incorporated into the podcast in the future?
Well, we've been thinking a lot about that lately, and one thing I'm excited about is we have now 90 or 100 hours of content from previous shows, and I'd like us to organize those. And so one idea I had is to organize and index them, and also to offer them again as current podcasts. So we could cover concussion in a podcast because we have interviews about concussion. We could cover bedside testing of the frontal lobe. So we have a lot of topics or a lot of different interviews that we could put together into a themed podcast. So I like that idea.
Thank you, Dr. Burns. I hope you will enjoy listening to the Neurology podcast.